Hey everyone, it's Thursday, October 1st. Today you are going to first go and check in on campus, and then let's talk about conclusions so that you can write your conclusion, finish up your outline, and we can be ready to go for tomorrow. So with conclusions, obviously this is the part where we're finishing up our entire paper. So this is the last thing that your reader reads. So we need to make sure that we leave on a strong note so that our reader has a good sense and a good memory of what we talked about with them. So, it provides some closure for your reader on whatever topic you're talking about, which is also helpful and gives your reader something to think about after they're done reading your paper. So there are three parts to a conclusion. The first part is restate your thesis. The second part is summarize your main points, and the last part is your significance. When we restate your thesis, we need to remind your reader of what your whole argument was so that if they forgot your first sentence or your introduction, they can kind of piece together all of the things that you told them throughout. It's just a good reminder of like, hey, remember this was our main argument. Don't do the exact same wording. Your wording should be a little bit different than it was in your thesis statement. Then you're going to summarize your main points. So go back and look at your topic sentences and remind your readers of what your 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or however many main points you have. Remind your readers of what those main points are. And then lastly, you need to leave your reader with something to think about. So what do you want them to be thinking about? What side do you want them to be taking? What do you want them to consider more? This part, in the introduction, we talked about the introduction being an upside down triangle. Your conclusion is opposite. It is more of a right side up triangle. So we start with our thesis, 3 main points, and then by the time you're at the end, you should be ready to release your reader back out into the world. So we should try and help them make those connections between our topic and the real world again. You might even go back and re-reference your attention device at this point. So a couple tips to do. When you're working on your conclusion, reread your entire essay and consider what the reader needs to know in their conclusion or what you think that they should really be reminded of. Reinforce your thesis and your main ideas so that your author remembers, or so that your reader remembers what you want them to know. Show the significance of the topic or the issue. So let your reader really know what's important here and how does it apply to their lives. Provide some closure. So try using a shorter sentence for this. The most effective conclusions that I've seen end with a really short sentence. Make the reader think about why you have just written this, and in a good way, and not just because Petrowski told me I had to read it or write it. And stay consistent. Make sure that your tone, your purpose is staying consistent throughout the entire essay. Some tips of what not to do. Don't introduce new or irrelevant information in your conclusion. You're just going to confuse people. Don't restate your thesis word for word. It's boring. We already read that sentence once. Give us a new sentence to read. Don't only summarize your main ideas. Make sure that you're connecting them to why is it important to us, why is it important to the world, why is it important to your argument. And don't use in conclusion or any other of those cliched phrases that you might have been taught earlier as ways of transitioning. All in all is another one it's awful. It doesn't mean anything. So avoid some of those. So this is an example from a paper about the telltale heart. So our thesis says, in the telltale heart, the narrator's diseased mind betrays symptoms of sociopathy, even as he desperately tries to convince readers of his sanity. In the telltale heart, this is our conclusion now, Poe provides a chilling glimpse into the warped mind of a sociopath with no conscience, no guilt, and no concern for social norms. So that's how we restate our thesis. But perhaps what's most impressive is that Poe was able to do so before the advent of modern psychology. As a dark romantic who has been exploring the deepest, darkest crevices of the human mind, Poe was able to push both the literary and psychological boundaries of his time. Poe wasn't just telling a tale, rather, he was gifting us the disturbing, telltale symptoms of sociopathy. So, we see that we have restated our thesis. This, I'm assuming, goes through some of the main ideas, and then here we have, why is this important? Why should I care that Poe wrote this story? Here's another one. This one's on teen pregnancy. So, although society has molded teen motherhood into a problem with disastrous costs and consequences for society, in reality, the issue is an over-exaggerated and socially constructed problem that has little to do with the qualifying word teen or the age of mothers. So, we have our restate thesis. Clearly, our society has constructed the phenomenon of teenage pregnancy and childbirth into a controversial social issue that has stigmatized teen moms on account of inaccurate presumptions generated through faulty evidence. Perhaps the crux of the problem of teenage motherhood lies in its definition, construction, and scientific inquiry. If our society constructs problems in an exaggerative manner to cater to our beliefs and agendas, then what social problems are justified as real problems? Can we rely on quantitative data plagued by problems of selection and simply ignore qualitative data, the testimonies of mothers themselves? These questions certainly seem to be more threatening than the 17-year-old neighborhood girl down the street with a baby on her hip who would live in poverty with child or without. Our last example is from Romeo and Juliet. So, just like the young Romeo and Juliet, we too are blinded by love, a love for this love story, so much so that we have failed to see its striking, destructive flaw that lies in one not-so-minor detail. It's a lust story. But by admitting that Romeo and Juliet are caught up in the ultimate example of infatuation, we can recognize the volatile power of lust and its manipulative ability to pass for love. This interpretation does not diminish the value of this Shakespearean classic in any way. Rather, it may make the play even more relevant, as a cautionary reminder that the boundary between love and lust is blurred and unclear. As humans, we are all fragile and vulnerable due to our emotions. We are carnal, we are inherently wired for infatuation and sensual passion. But unless we make a deliberate and conscious effort to differentiate between lust and love, we too can easily fall victim to lust, just as Romeo and Juliet did. So, once again, we have our restatement of thesis, we have our summary of main points, and then we have a tie to us so that we too could end up in this situation. So today you need to go back to your own outline that you have and you need to finish it up. You need to put in a conclusion so that you have every part of your outline filled up. And then when we're finished, tomorrow we're going to look at formal language so that you can go through and edit your formal language a little bit, and then you'll be ready to turn it in tomorrow. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask so that I can get you on the right track so that you can turn in your completed outline tomorrow on Friday. Have a great day, guys.